When I look back at my drinking, that's when it started.
Two big dudes showed up when she was asleep and told her to wake up, get dressed, and then drove her blindfolded to a place she's never been before.
It's a huge money-making industry that is destroying lives.
Kat Von D shares the horrors of Provo Canyon School. Before I get into the story, I just want to put out a disclaimer. Please do not send any hate to Kat Von D or anyone else involved in this story. This video is simply meant to report on the news and give some insight on the situation. On October 5th, tattoo artist and entrepreneur Kat Von D posted an Instagram video about her experience with Provo Canyon School. For context, Paris Hilton recently exposed the terrible conditions she and many other survivors endured during their time at the school. For those unfamiliar with Paris's story, we recommend you watch Paris's documentary on YouTube, This is Paris. Back to the current story. Kat Von D posted a 23-minute IGTV video where she discussed how she attended Provo Canyon School as a student in her teenage years. In the caption, she talked about the school being unregulated, unethical, and "Thank you, Paris Hilton, for giving me the courage to share about being locked up for half a year without ever seeing the sun at Provo Canyon School in Utah. I spent those 6 traumatic months of my teenage years only to leave with major PTSD and other traumas due to the unregulated, unethical, and protocols of this school, and cannot believe this place is still operating." Kat said she doesn't consider PCS a school.
I don't like to call them schools because they're not schools. They're fucking lockdown facilities. They were definitely the most traumatic 6 months of my life.
She said she was emotionally abused at PCS and claimed other kids were physically and as well.
I hate to imagine that there's someone else out there that can relate to my experience, because I would never wish this upon anybody.
Her story began with her growing up in a conservative household. Kat said when she reached her teen years, she began rebelling by listening to punk music and dropped out of school to pursue a tattoo career. It wasn't long before her parents brought her to see a therapist who told her parents that Provo Canyon was the place to send her. Kat explained she was taken away by mysterious men.
And so one night I was sleeping in bed, and the door opens and there's these two big dudes and a pretty athletic built woman standing at the door telling me to calm down and to get dressed, and that we were going to be leaving, and that if I didn't do what they say, then I would have to choose the hard way, which was getting handcuffed.
Kat said she was taken on a plane to Utah and then blindfolded as they drove to the school. Once they arrived, Kat said she was strip searched.
They did a strip search, which was completely degrading. I remember having to get naked in front of this person who I don't know if they had credentials. I have no idea who they were.
At first, Kat was told her minimum stay would be 3 weeks.
So I quickly learned that I had to pretty much kind of work the system and try and get out as soon as I could. You know, the binder had said, hey, like the minimum amount of time that you're going to be here is 3 weeks. But depending on your progress, you may get time added onto that.
However, Kat ended up staying much longer.
And I had no idea that it was going to end up being 6 months of being trapped in this pretty crazy, just torturous, awful place.
Kat said PCS lied about her results.
A few days later, a counselor set me aside and told me that I had contracted HIV and that she was sure that it was from tattooing. And, you know, as a 15-year-old, I mean, I had no idea what to think. I didn't know how I was going to tell my parents, and I didn't even have the time to critically think that this could be a lie, which obviously it was. But they never told me that. I went through those entire 6 months thinking that I had HIV, and this was just a scare tactic to try and get me to stop tattooing.
Kat doesn't believe the school was run by people with credentials because of the staff's mean personalities. She said the school was very strict, saying people who attended the school were punished for doing things like coughing or sneezing. One of the main punishments was being forced to sit in a chair and stare at a wall for hours.
Some girls had been stuck staring at a wall for days, and if they fell asleep or fell off their chair, they would just get docked more time.
While at the school, Kat made a friend and the pair would draw comics together as a way to have some kind of fun, but Kat said they got in trouble for drawing.
One day, a counselor found the drawings, and I ended up getting an additional 3 months added for that.
Kat then discussed privacy at the school. She said there was no phone access allowed, and there wasn't a way for her to contact her parents to tell them what was going on. If she wanted to have a call with her parents, there would have to be a counselor on the phone listening in.
When we finally were able to have conversations with our parents, they were always monitored with somebody, like a counselor had to be on the phone with you, and the minute if you started trying to tell the truth about what was happening, they would just hang up and then call your parents and tell them, oh, she's being manipulative and trying to get out.
Kat said she was never angry at her parents because she believes they wouldn't have sent her to PCS had they known how bad the situation was. Kat also spoke about how bad punishments would get.
If you acted out, they would come around and inject sedatives into your butt and either put you in a straitjacket or just sedate the hell out of you to where you were pretty much in a coma.
According to Kat, some girls would spend days in a coma-like state, soiling themselves and not being taken care of. She said there were a wide variety of reasons kids would be sent to the school. Kat said some kids were like her and had been acting rebellious. Other kids had criminal records, and some kids were struggling with their mental health. Once Kat was released from Provo Canyon, she was sent to a Christian school, and that was when she first began experiencing symptoms of PTSD.
The first weeks, getting outside of being released from Provo, it was like you didn't know how to be yourself.
She struggled to accept having privacy. She said during her time at Provo, she had to do everything in front of counselors, even using the bathroom and shower. When she came to the Christian school, she was scared to use the bathroom with the door closed out of fear of being sent back to Provo. Kat also spoke about her struggles with alcohol and blamed Provo for those issues.
When I look back at my drinking, that's when it started. And so I was drinking bottles and bottles of whiskey just to escape and numb whatever anxiety that I was feeling. And it wasn't until this last week that after watching this and really reliving some of these things in my mind that I realized that was kind of like the root to my drinking and later on doing drugs.
Kat overcame her addictions and has been sober for 13 years, but she said she still has stuff to work through. Kat said she still hasn't been able to talk to her parents about what happened at Provo, but she doesn't want them to feel bad.
I think one of the hardest parts of doing this video is that I haven't really had a sit-down conversation about this with my parents. I'm in my late 30s now, and this happened, 20 years ago. And I guess I just wanted to spare them from knowing the horror that took place at Provo Canyon because it wasn't their fault. I think that schools like these, they basically exploit the fears of parents, like genuinely concerned parents, and scare them into sending their kids to these schools.
Kat also said the school was extremely expensive. She said she doesn't know how much her parents paid, but looking at other testimonials, she saw that some had paid up to $220 a day. Kat criticized Provo Canyon as a treatment center.
Real therapy doesn't require more therapy afterwards.
She said she knows the school has tried to cover up the by saying they had switched to new management in 2000, but Kat claimed she had seen newer reviews from students claiming abuse. Kat believed she was worse coming out of Provo than she was going in due to her PTSD.
It's a huge money-making industry that is destroying lives.
Fans and commenters were proud of Kat for coming forward with her story. I can't think of two better boss ladies to join forces and end this horrific place. The amazing strength, massive platforms that you both have will surely bring major light to a very dark reality. The fact that you could actually save kids. Wow. Thank you for your voices and all you are doing, as well as all the other survivors coming forward. Sending you all my love and admiration, Kat. I know that, even when out wounds are healed for the most part, they can still be hard to talk about. Yes, 2020 is a year of taking back our personal power and bringing to light what's bothering us and what's wrong with this world. No more place for shame, fear, or regret and guilt. Thanks for your braveness. Wow. And to think boarding schools were glamorized in middle and high school. We were told to be bad girls. I'm so sorry. I hope these places get shut down ASAP and the perpetrators get locked up immediately. Former PCS students and employees also commented, "Damn, I remember the pink." This is Catherine from Paris's documentary and fellow PCS survivor. You were on Unit 2 and I was on Unit 3, so our paths rarely crossed, but from the bottom of my heart, thank you for speaking out. I was 14 when I first arrived, so I understand how hard it was being so young. The nurse practitioner there, I can say so much. Thank you for speaking out. I too was sent to Discovery Academy in Provo, Utah. It was owned a few years prior to Paris being there by my facility's owner, Dr. Eugene Thorne. He was an incredibly disturbed individual. I was there for 1 year, 1 month, and 3 days. I counted every single day. My trauma resurfaced this year. In June, I was diagnosed with complex PTSD and BPD. I also have agoraphobia. I've always been a fan of your makeup line and your artistry. I admire you so much more now. Thank you for speaking your truth. I worked as a nighttime receptionist the year that you were at Provo Canyon School. I was never allowed to go back where the girls stayed, but I did see and hear things that were disturbing as a 19-year-old girl. I was so young and naive. I had absolutely no idea that such horrific things were happening behind those locked doors. I do remember feeling empathy for the girls that were there during the very few times that I was able to interact. I'm sorry for yours and others' experiences at this institution. Thanks for being so brave and speaking out. It makes me want to share more about trauma in my own life in order to help others. The next day, Paris uploaded Kat's video to her own Instagram, thanking her for coming forward with her story. On behalf of all the survivors and myself, I want to send a huge thank you to Kat Von D for being so courageous, open, and honest telling your story. In tears, watching and listening to what you went through, bringing back even more of the horrible memories I have blocked out for so many years. I can relate to you in so many ways. Like you, I have always felt so ashamed to tell anyone about this. The people who work at and run these places are the ones who should be ashamed. Thank you for helping shine a light with me on this very important movement. No child should have to ever experience anything like this. 4 days after Kat released her video, Provo Canyon School released a new statement. It's unclear whether it's in response to Kat's video, but they do address a lot of comments Kat made about the school. As previously stated, Provo Canyon School was sold by its previous ownership in August 2000. We therefore cannot comment on the operations or patient experience prior to that time. What we can say is that the school provides a structured environment teaching life skills, providing behavioral health therapy, and continuing education for youth who come to us with pre-existing and complex emotional, behavioral, and psychiatric needs. These youth have not been successful in typical home and school environments, and in many cases have a history of engaging in dangerous behaviors such as and/or attempting physical and/or aggression towards others and use of illicit substances. While we acknowledge there are individuals over the many years who believe they were not helped by the program, we are heartened by the many stories former residents share about how their stay was a pivot point in improving, and in many cases, saving their lives. So, what's the big issue? The complicated situation with behavioral modification schools and the importance of proper mental health care. As of 2008, there were rumored to be approximately 650 behavioral modification schools in the United States. There are 4 types of behavioral modification schools: therapeutic boarding schools, residential treatment centers, wilderness therapy programs, military boot camp programs. Therapeutic boarding schools are long-term treatment facilities that focus on academics and offer extracurriculars while providing regular therapy and group therapy. Residential treatment centers are more strict, with intensive therapy for their students. It can be good for children who have mental illnesses or addictions, and can have a 24 watch available for more severe cases. Wilderness therapy programs have become less common. They require teenagers to do physical labor and teach them things like responsibility and how to work as a team. The last type is military boot camp programs, which are made for students who had disciplinary issues but want to go into the military once finished with schooling. If you want to enroll your child in one of these programs, it's important to research the facility to ensure the school is accredited. You should also check the reviews for the school to ensure the school is safe. Like Provo Canyon, there are unfortunately other schools who treat their students poorly. The Elon School was a private behavioral modification program in Poland, Maine that has stirred up a lot of controversy in the past. In 1975, the state of Illinois removed 11 children from the school's care, claiming the school was also in the limelight in 2002 when a former student was convicted of taking another person's life. The former student claimed he was and humiliated at the school, which allegedly contributed to his confession. In 2016, the Maine State Police opened an investigation into the passing of a 1982 Elon student. The student's parents had been told he had passed suddenly of an aneurysm, but a former Elon student claimed the other student had been forced to fight other students by staff as a humiliation tactic and had complained of a headache the night before passing away. In 2018, after spending more than 10 years in prison, the former student was released from prison after it was revealed there was insufficient evidence against him. So you can see, parents often send their children to these kinds of facilities to help their behavior, but some poorly run schools end up hurting their children more. As Kat and Paris mentioned in their videos, instead of helping patients with mental illness, staff members would often sedate them with medications. In an interview with the New York Post, former Provo student Jen Robison spoke about her experience. They isolated us, they forcibly drugged us with like haloperidol. Over-medication is harmful, especially to growing teenagers. Over-medication happens when someone is given or takes too much medication, or takes medication that isn't needed. In Paris's and Kat's situations, medication was used to sedate students who may have been dealing with mental health issues, which was inappropriate. If there was a genuine need for sedation, Provo Canyon should have sent the student to a medical facility instead of trying to administer the medication on their own. With an increase in mental health issues in young people, it is important they receive proper mental health care to ensure healthy growth. According to a study published by the American Psychological Association, the number of mood disorders and related outcomes has increased significantly in the last decade. If you would like to know more about other ways to be there for your troubled child, you can check out our previous video about Paris Hilton. As mentioned in Paris's documentary, there are many celebrities who were at Provo Canyon School as well. While not everyone may speak up, it's important to see people with a large platform exposing the terrible conditions of a facility that claims to be a treatment center. Paris is also continuing to speak up by leading a protest at Provo.
This is the first time I've been back at Provo Canyon School. It's so weird being back here again. But I'm so proud of all the survivors that are coming forward today. When I was a teenager, I promised myself that one day I was going to shut down Provo Canyon School and save all the children. And today I'm living up to that promise, and I couldn't be prouder.
If you would like to support the cause, you can sign Paris's petition to help shut down Provo Canyon School. What do you think about this story? Do you think celebrities who attended these schools should speak out? Let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, hit the like button. To keep up on all the tea, consider subscribing to the channel.